Why you acting brand new? Why you acting, like you don't know what's going on? You done switched up. You done changed up. What's popping? Are you feeling okay? Are you doing all right? What's going on with you? Have you ever heard these kind of comments, these kind of statements? Most of the time when you hear things like this, it's because somewhere along the line there has been a change. Something has happened to where you're not doing the same things that you used to do. You're not acting the same way you used to act. You're not talking like you normally would talk. And people that are really close to you or in tune with you or know you, they notice a difference. And so they may ask, what's going on with you? You acting funny style. You know what I'm saying? You done switched up. What's popping? Talk to me. What's really going on? But before we get into what's really going on, please make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel. It only takes you 30 seconds to do that. Please hit that bell notification so you always notified whenever I upload content, because it helps YouTube to know that you're interested in the videos, and they'll share more videos like this to a wider range of audience. And someone needs to hear the videos, you dig? Now let's get back to the message. Now I'm going to read into your hearing. The scripture for today is coming out of 1 Corinthians, the 15th chapter and the 33rd verse, you dig? 1 Corinthians 15 and 33. And it says, be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. You dig? Be not deceived. Don't let the wool be pulled over your eyes. Evil communications, not wholesome communications, not godly communications, but evil communications. That means manipulative and deceptive and wrong, and you know what I'm saying? Communications that don't benefit you or mean you no good. Be not deceived, because evil communications corrupts good manners. 1 Corinthians 15 and 33, you dig? You ever deal with that? Somebody that then changed up on you, they done switched up on you, they used to treat you this way, but now all of a sudden they're treating you different. They used to talk to you this way, but now all of a sudden they talking to you different. They used to do this for you or act a certain way when they are around you, right? But now all of a sudden they're treating you different. They're acting different, brand new, funny style. It doesn't feel good. It makes you feel like, okay, is there something I have done to make you treat me different, for you to talk to me different, for you to act different? Talk to me. What's really going on? Let's talk this thing out, because I need to find out what's popping. I don't like the way you acting. I don't like the way you talking. I don't like the way you're moving. You're moving differently. You know what I'm saying? You're using different kind of speech, and you done switched up the way you dress, and this is not the person that I have known for how many ever years or months or weeks or whatever the case may be. The person I knew acted differently than this person that stands before me. Have you ever been put in that kind of situation? I have. Doesn't feel good. I've also done that to others, and I know it didn't feel good. I might not have realized it at the time, but once it was brought to my attention, and I had to really search myself. I had to really look and see if what they were saying was true. And then once I did a self-examination, then I had to decide whether I wanted to change back, go back to who I I was originally, or stay this different person moving forward? It was a challenge. It wasn't easy. And it didn't feel good hearing that from this person that I claimed that I loved, right? But it happens when we not paying attention. It happens when we get around certain individuals and certain groups. It happens when we listen to others, when we intake information that may not be for us. It may not be good for us. And then we let that thing go from our head down to our heart. And once it gets in our heart, it's difficult to get it out. You dig? I raised my kids a certain way. I raised them to act a certain way, to walk a certain way. When I mean walk, I mean move, the way they move, a certain way. There were certain things I didn't allow in my house as far as speech and talking and words. You know what I'm saying? And so when one of my kids came home moving different, talking different, acting different, you know what I'm saying? It got my attention. It got my wife's attention when I was married at the time. And she let me know, hey, have you noticed this about so-and-so? I've never heard them talk like this. I haven't seen them dress like, now all of a sudden now they're dressing different. I haven't, seen them, act this way towards their siblings or, towards me. And all of a sudden now they're acting this way. This is their response. When I say something, this is how they're responding. And so when I peeped game and I had to kind of, I heard what she was telling me, but I had to see it for myself. And so once I saw it for myself, I had to ask the question, yo, come here. What's going on with you? I had to do some investigating, right? What's popping? You acting different. You acting funny style. You know what I'm saying? Who you been talking to? Who you been hanging around? What you been doing? You dig? And after some investigation and after some prodding and some prying and maybe a little bit of threatening, I finally found out what was going on, who they had been hanging around, what they had been listening to, and the reason for the change. See, there's one thing I can say about my kids is that I have very good kids, always have, and now they're grown, they're adults, right? But when my children were kids growing up, from, little kids through elementary, through high school, I have always had good, obedient children. For the most part, they've had their hiccups here and there. They had their moments where they tried me and their mama here and there. But for the most part, they were good kids. But I could always tell when they were around bad company. Have you ever heard that saying that bad company corrupts good behavior? See, my kids were very well behaved in the house and out the house, whether me and their mama was around or we weren't around. We got word from other adults, even other kids, of, how they acted and how they carried themselves, and that they had good manners and good morals and how they spoke. You know what I'm saying? Never had no issues with my children. But here and there, when they got around bad company, when they got around some kids that didn't have good morals and good character, and they started listening to them, then I could see the change. I could see where those things were trying to creep in, and I had to stomp it out real quick. Because if I didn't, those things would have took root from their head to the heart. And once it had got in the heart, man, it's a struggle. It's like hooks. You know what I'm saying? And if you try to pull it out, it's hard. If you ever have had a hook, like a fish hook, right, in a fish, and if you don't know how to pull that hook out just right, you'll tear the fish up trying to get the hook out, right? You'll do more damage trying to get it out than if you would than just leaving it in there. You don't want to leave it in there, right? So I went through that with my kids, but also not just with my children. I have experienced it myself. You dig? There was a time when I had told my wife, hey, I've had you on this pedestal, for a few years now. And I need to take you off that pedestal because that's where God belongs. I say it again in case you didn't hear it. I said to my wife, I've had you on this pedestal. I've had you up here on this pedestal. And I'm going to have to take you down off that pedestal because that's where God belongs. Do you know that was one of the biggest mistakes that I made in my marriage? That, I believe, was the start of the downfall of my marriage. All because I let something that someone said get in my head, and instead of me expelling it immediately, that thing turned and turned and turned and turned, and eventually worked its way down to my heart, to where I felt bold enough to be able to say that phrase to her. The person that I said I loved, the person that was happy with the way that I was loving them. But because of listening to someone else who didn't have the greatest intentions, right? Who at the time was not married, because I listened to them and I didn't expel that thing immediately. It got in my heart. And then I went to my wife and said, yo, there's going to be some changes around here. You dig? And that was one of the worst things I could do. But my good behavior, the way I entreated her, the way I loved her, the way I had her on that pedestal, and the way that, that she was happy and there was no issues with us in our marriage, because I listened to bad counsel. Bad counsel corrupted my good behavior, right? So we got to be careful that we don't let bad company, bad counsel, bad people, bad advice, bad things that we hear get into our heads and then into our hearts, and then it corrupts our good behavior, our good morals, our good standards, right? The way we see people and treat people, the way we're kind to people, and the way we love people, the way we give to people, the way we do for God in representing Him. Because if we're not careful, the devil will send people. The devil will whisper things in your ear. When you're sleeping at night, the devil will come to you. When you're watching stuff on TV that's not edifying and it's not wholesome and it's not loving, but it's full of, demonic innuendos. When we're listening to music that's not edifying our spirit and that's not wholesome. When we're going places that we should not be going because it's not going to benefit us or our spirit or our well-being, right? When we get involved with certain individuals or get involved with certain groups or organizations, we got to be careful that we're not worshiping the organization, that we're not replacing God with a set of rules or standards or bylaws, right? Like the Divine Nine does. It's just as an example. We got to make sure that we are putting God first in everything we do. Because again, bad company, though it may not seem intentional like it's bad in the beginning, it may not seem or feel like it's not beneficial in the beginning, You got to be careful and be aware. This is why we have to pray without ceasing. Pray always. The Bible says men are to always pray. You dig? Pray about everything. I don't care what nobody says. I don't care how silly or frivolous it may appear. I don't care if someone calls it stupid or dumb. Pray about everything, because the Holy Spirit will not lead us wrong, but it will guide us into all truth. It will remind us of what the word says. Therefore, we don't have to let bad company and bad character corrupt our good morals and our good behavior. You dig? What we watch can be so detrimental if we're not careful, right? Stuff that we watch on TV, movies, and stuff. You know how we'll binge watch Netflix and binge watch Disney Plus and all this other Hulu and all these other things. We got to be careful what we watch, because a lot of stuff that y'all watching on Disney is demonic. It's based out of the demonic. Oh, it's dressed up and it's you know, it's shown and it appears as it's innocent and wholesome and all that. But half that stuff ain't. If you did any kind of research on that stuff, you'll find out that it's based out of a lot of demonic things. You know what I'm saying? A lot of demonic connotations to it. Hulu, like I said, you know, YouTube, TV, you know, a lot of them. I don't even know half of them that's out there now, you know, Tubi and all those other kind of stuff, especially if it's free. Got to be careful of what you entertain, because that stuff will get in your spirit. That stuff gets in your house. You know what I'm saying? And next thing you know, we're watching stuff that we never even thought about watching. We're contemplating watching stuff that we know doesn't agree with our spirit. Kind of music that we listen to, or that we're around that people are listening to. Got to be careful, because half that stuff that is being played on the radio is demonic. The artists that are performing these songs have, you know, sold their soul, or they have been involved in a lot of demonic type stuff. Now, we may not know it initially, but if you take the time to investigate, you realize that half the stuff that's being played on the radio, it's not good for your spirit. Right? And that's not just for the secular. That also goes for some gospel music. Got to be careful what you're listening to. You know, not too long ago, wasn't it Kirk Franklin that's talking about that that the lamb is something about the goats and all of that? So we got to be careful of the stuff that we entertain, the stuff that we hear, the stuff that we look at. We got to be careful of where we go, who we hang around, because we don't want bad behavior corrupting our good morals and good character. You dig? So I just want to come on and share those words of wisdom with you on today. And I pray that they find place in your heart, that you do a self-examination of yourself about where you go and who you hang around, who your kids are around. You know what I'm saying? The friends and the company that you keep. Because in 26, it's time to cut out all the foolishness, man. Even if we got to walk alone, even if we got to lose some friends along the way, lose some family along the way, even if we have to, you know what I'm saying, have people upset and mad with us, talking about, what's wrong with you? No, what's wrong with you? I'm moving in how God has called me to move. I'm moving in God's purpose and his assignment. I'm not acting funny style and acting different, but you are. What's wrong with you? These are some of the questions we may have to ask people, you know what I'm saying? So we can get a clear understanding of where they're at, where their head is. So we know whether we need to stay put or whether we need to move on. You dig? Yo, this is your man, Levon. Be blessed. Remember, Lameli E. Love, uplift, motivate, to inspire, learn, laugh, encourage, and enlighten. That is my mandate. That is this channel's purpose. And I pray that, again, you like the video, you share the video, and that you subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell notification so you're always notified whenever I upload content. And I'll see you in the next video. I'm out.